All right, let's see if it works this time. Hopefully it'll stick. Otherwise, I'm just gonna go ahead and record a video and not do it live. So we'll see. Whew, my heavens. So today we're gonna talk about entrepreneurship. We're gonna talk about coaching, and we're gonna talk about social media from the perspective of a BCBA, and also from the perspective of the ACT model, right? So I realize actually that a lot of people in here are entrepreneurs or agency owners, however you like to think about yourself. You work for yourself. Not everyone, but a lot of people are, or they're in a really like a higher position within the agency, like a director level. And that's really cool. So all of you have a relationship with being your own, well, not all of you, lots of you have a relationship with being your own boss. I'm gonna pop a cough drop in because I have been talking nonstop today, and I'm gonna continue to talk nonstop today. So just a little self-care there. So it's cool. You guys already have a relationship with that. And I think it's interesting to take the ACT perspective of how to navigate that relationship within the context of this, because it can be a really rocky road sometimes, especially if it's something that's relatively new. But the way that I'm going to start today is by doing a little intention setting exercise. So I'm going to go ahead and invite you, if you've done some of these before, you probably know the drill by now, to go ahead and get comfortable. Uncross, I've got my legs crossed, so I'm going to uncross my legs, straighten my back, close my eyes, and take a deep breath from your root all the way up to your head, and filling your body in all four directions. All right, ready and go. And hold at the top and release. Imagining the air coming back down from your head all the way down to your root. And again, let's do another deep breath. Hold and down. And now let's set an intention for the next breath that we'll intend to take what information will serve us and help us, and let go of information that might not resonate at this time. All right, and in with the what serves us, and release what we don't really need right now, trusting that we'll be able to find it again when we need it. And just take a moment to observe your thoughts, any desires, any worries or fears, whether they be on this topic or not. And just become aware of them. And if they're relevant to the situation, then we can hold on to them, we can work with them. If they're not, go ahead and set them aside for now, trusting that they'll be there when you're ready to work with them. And if you have any fears, ask yourself if it is a lawful truth, an absolute truth, that fear is existing, or if it's just a perspective. Ask if that has to be true. Ask if it's helpful in service of your overall goals and vision. And if you can think about it differently, and intend to be able to think about it differently. All right. When you're ready, without rushing, go ahead and open your eyes. Come back to this space. And let's go ahead and open up our practice for today, our training for today. I'm going to actually start with the idea of coaching. So I'm going to start with the idea of, are you already a coach? Right? So you're a behavior analyst, right? And we've unpacked a lot of what being a behavior analyst means. That was all, I think, week 2. There's the self-identity of a behavior analyst. What does it mean to be a behavior analyst? What are you going to subscribe to? And what are you no longer going to subscribe to? Right? And so I want you to play with the idea of, if you already exist, kind of like a coach does, and any worries or judgments you might have about existing in that way, what that means about you as a person. Do you have any, what's the word I'm looking for? Judgment about someone who calls themselves a coach, about their qualifications or the qualifications that you have versus what they have, right? That's all stuff to be aware of, because there's potential for it to be limiting. And we don't want to be limiting. We want to just play in options, opportunities. So coaching is an unregulated title. We all know that BCBA is a very highly regulated title. And so it can feel weird to adopt an unregulated title like coaching. But truly, most of us already do coaching. And a lot of us function in the way that a life coach would. Or any type of specific coach. We're helping someone identify a goal that they need in order to live their best life, right? And we're helping them achieve it. And through the addition of ACT, we can also work on the mindset barriers, because our ACT is working with verbal behavior, right? We're going to go more into that next week, where we're going to probably, or hopefully, tie together how ACT fits into behavior analysis, informed by the examples that you've already been doing, right? But you kind of already do coaching, and you're probably really good at it, right? Now, it's not the exact same thing, because sometimes, like, the population does make a difference. So if you're working with children, okay, there's a difference between working with children and working with adults. If you're working with people with disabilities, there's a potential for there to be something different there too. Not always. But the addition of the ACT component is definitely going to make it so that you have all of the skills, especially when you start working on communication in general. For me personally, the communication component around being misunderstood and having, like, people misunderstand me misunderstanding them, and making space for miscommunication to be safe and normal and not have it reflect upon me was a game changer. The problem was that I took any kind of miscommunication that I had as like a reflection upon, like, me as a professional, right? And I would usually get mad, right? I still sometimes get mad about being miscommunicated with or miscommunicating. But allowing myself to realize that underneath that anger was a belief that I wasn't good enough. And so I needed to work on myself and my beliefs, so that way when I was triggered by miscommunication, I could work with it rather than it being a stuck point, right? And so the stuck point for coaching in you, right, could be the same. It could be different. It could just be the idea that coaching is an option for you. That's the stuck point. I think it is, obviously. But it comes down to what you want to do, okay? And that takes us back to day one. What is it that you actually want to do in your life? What are the things that you want to create? How do you want to relate to work? How do you want to feel in your work? And for me, asking myself those questions was incredibly hard because I wasn't getting what I wanted to feel in the work that I was doing. I wasn't doing the work that I actually wanted to do. I was doing work that I was trained to do, work that I valued. I worked with people who I found to be incredibly important to me, right? But there was something missing. And when I realized that that was twofold, it was really scary, right? I had judgments about coaches. I thought that they were not good. I thought that the only way that someone was good was if they had a really nice, beautiful degree, and they were approved by governing bodies, right? Okay, so they had their certifications, they were state certified, they went to a big school, they did all of the things, right? That made them good. But what I realized is that I also was good, right? In that I had judgments about the idea of coaching at all. I had judgments about my capability to be able to be an entrepreneur, be able to run my own business. Because at the same time as I wanted freedom from the job that I was doing, I also was terrified that I would fuck it up. And that is always kind of the way that things that matter to us happen, right? Because in order to achieve them, in order to move towards something that's so important, right? That's so exciting, that's so meaningful, you can't remove the possibility of failure, right? You can't remove it. It comes hand in hand. You can't remove the possibility of things going wrong. It's inherent to taking the opportunity. And so with ACT, we get the opportunity to change our relationship to the failure, which is what we did with the imposter syndrome and the perfectionism work, week 3 or 4, right? And so now that we have some skills, we can start unpacking what it might be to actually go get what it is that we want, because we're getting clearer about it. So that's exciting. And then the way that I like to think about like starting with entrepreneurship, or like, what am I going to do, right? Like, I'm going to be a coach, I'm going to start my own business, but like, what am I going to do, right? Some of the first stuff that I like to do is think about, how much do you want to work? How many days? What format do you enjoy? What format is going to allow you to work, like live the life you want, right? So for me, initially, I really liked working in person. I felt like there was more connection to be had with in person. But as I was kind of forced by my environment and my values to move to an online platform, I loved the freedom that the online platform gave me. I actually worked with a coach myself who, she doesn't even live in this country. She lives in another country, an American living in another country, and she can work from anywhere. She can travel and do anything that she wants. And I really liked that idea. I really want that capacity. And so working in person no longer suited like my values, but working in a video platform was something that I was nervous about. So I had to try it out, and I had to fail a few times. We've all been there at this point, to learning how to Zoom, or whatever platform, video sharing platform you use. And it wasn't easy, it wasn't comfortable, but it also let us stay safe in the COVID times, right? And now I love it, and now I'm excited about it. So then what we get to do is, okay, so how do we want to work, right? What hours, what platform, what way is going to let me live my best life? Okay, so that whole part about what does work do for me right? Rather than what I can do for someone is a big switch for a lot of people. How can my work support my life rather than how my work supports other people's lives is a really big perspective shift. But it's also super important because it allows you to move towards your version of your best life, right? And we're creating ands here rather than ors. So then it's going to be like, well, what do I even offer, right? Like, who do I work with? I know how to work with this population. How does that translate? And so the way that I like to do it is, who do you want to work with, right? How is it going to serve you? How is it that you, like, what do you want to do? What do you like to do? You might not know 100% yet. You might have to play with some things. You might have to do some free hours, right? But at the same time as that is true, it also opens the door for you to be able to be lit up and on fire and excited about the work that you do. Because when we are that, when we're excited, right, and our work is energizing to us and we look forward to it, that's like 1,000 times better for the people that we are serving, right? Because it also serves you and your product, kind of, right? Like, you're the thing that is going to help people. And that might feel really scary right now, but I know a lot of people have talked about who they'd like to work with, right? I've heard Lauren talk about wanting to work with parents. I've heard, other people say, like, I want to do ADHD. I've heard, some people say, I don't want to work with BCBAs, right? Like, that's also really fantastic information. Being able to figure out who you no longer want to work with. And so that's cool, because then it's giving you permission to do that thing. What is getting in the way of this, right? Imposter syndrome, perfectionism, and the juggle. Taking on a big change like this can feel incredibly overwhelming, because even as I was writing down the stuff of entrepreneurship, I was like, I can't just drop all this crap on you guys because it's going to be overwhelming. But most of you have, like I said, have already thought about it. So the idea of, how am I going to make money? What about marketing? What about sales? What about an online presence, like websites and social media? Boom. How am I going to make materials? How am I going to make content? How am I going to let people even know what I'm doing if I don't know what I'm doing? Overwhelming, yeah? So let's take it one step at a time. Let's think about it from the values perspective, right? And let's break it down the way that a BCBA would break it down. And so at the same time as we're going to break it down in the observable, tangible, step-by-step stuff, we also have to look at the mindset stuff that could be getting in the way of even being able to start that project. I know for me, when I was going into grad school, I had a person, they were my advisor, tell me that I wasn't going to get into grad school. She just told me that from my undergrad. She was like, you're not going to get into grad school. That's just not something that's going to work out for you. You're just not, Mallory. And so when I was applying to grad school, I was fucking tense. I didn't even want to open the website, let alone fill out all of the things, let alone write all of those papers. And so it took me up until the deadline, because I was so afraid of the thing, to even do it. And that was all mindset. That was all because I had it in my mind that I couldn't get in. Whereas if I went about it like, okay, well, I'll probably get in, or maybe I'll get in, or, whatever, I was more relaxed about it, it probably would have been an easier process. And so that's why thinking about where your stuck points are is going to be really important. So these are some of the ones that I see first. We've already started thinking about, what am I even going to do, right? So start off by writing out the things that you don't want to do. Maybe you don't want to work with parents anymore. Maybe you like working with parents. Maybe you like the mentorship process. Maybe you don't want anything to do with any more ABA agencies. Maybe you do. Maybe you want to be like a mentor to up and coming BCBAs. Maybe you want to do supervision. Maybe you want to do beginning BCBA mentorship. Okay, there's a ton of options out there. And honestly, it doesn't have to exist right now for it to be true for you. An ACT coach was something that I never saw anyone doing that, ever. But it was what I wanted to do, so I made it up. So getting clear, and I actually didn't know that I was going to be an ACT coach, if we're going to be completely honest. I thought I was going to be a parent coach. And so my vision of helping parents morphed into helping parents through BCBAs, and I really liked the idea of helping BCBAs because I used to be a BCBA who was miserable. So that's another way that you can look at it is, what did I need 2 years ago? And treat yourself like your potential ideal client. All right, now let's say you already know, okay? Let's say you already got it on lock and you're like, Mallory, I already know what the hell I want to do. So then let's start thinking about what's going to get in your way. All right. So for some people, it's asking for money. I even saw someone in the group today say, I have a hard time asking for money, but I think that if I was doing something on like Etsy or I was selling an artisanal product, I would have less of a hard time asking or receiving money from people for my services. Now, a lot of the times, if you've worked in an agency, you've worked for somebody else, they set your rates and you work the hours and you get the rate, right? Sometimes there's a hubbub over how many hours you have the opportunity to work or what's reasonable to work. But it's not a negotiation with a client around money. It's negotiation with an employer, and that feels like a different communication. It also means that we have to acknowledge that our work is valuable to people. It also means that we have to acknowledge our relationship with money and how we perceive money. If we have a scarcity in money, if we put a lot of pressure on money to mean something, probably we're going to interact with money differently than if we didn't have a pressure on money. And that brings me to the next part of like your ideal client. You might not be your ideal client in the money capacity. You might be 2 years ago or 1 year ago, as far as like what you need. But as far as like what the product is that you're giving to people, what the transformation is, what you're going to be doing with your work. But being able to figure out how many hours you can work productively, right? For me, I only want to work 2.5 days a week. And that's a truth that I had to kind of work my way around. And I had a belief that you couldn't make a business around that. And you certainly couldn't make meaningful money around that. But when you look at that, that doesn't have to be true, right? It's just that I had a belief around money that was that because I had pressure around money. I've got 2 books to recommend to you guys that I think you'll enjoy. One is called You Are a Badass at Money Making by Jen Sincero. This reads really fun. As you can see, mine's tabbed like crazy. And I use this one really frequently. Like I can't tell you, all my one-to-ones end up talking about money. Another favorite is this book, Rich as Fuck by Amanda Francis. Again, tabbed all over the place. She has a lot of really good YouTube content, podcast content, Instagram stuff out there that's also really fun to work with. But at this point, she's still recording her audiobook, so it's not on audio. The Green Book is on audio for those of you who prefer an audiobook format. And both of these books are on Amazon. They're not expensive at the time I'm recording this. Like less than, like they're about $15 to $20 each. And tons of really good work. But when we start changing our relationship with money, we open up the opportunity to have money. A lot of us want more money, but we don't actually want to do the things that allow us to receive money, right? We're okay with working hard, but we get sticky around asking for money or receiving money. And so a lot of the stuff in there is going to be helpful. But that's a little bit beyond the scope of like today. So let's get back to Target. So the next thing that I wanted to think about is marketing. That feels yucky too. Marketing and sales is something that a lot of the times people who have been in a clinical setting has been taken care of for them, right? People come off the wait list, or there's somebody who does that for you. You don't have to worry about it. And so putting yourself out there means that you have to be seen. People are going to see you. And that's really scary for people. It's really scary for people. Something that I want to talk about today is also like the fear of BCBAs, the fear of being reported for an ethical violation, the fear of the BCBA taking your letters. Like, that is a very big, scary thing. You put a lot of time into your letters. You want to keep them. You should want to keep them. They're valuable to you. They're valuable to other people. They're meaningful to our community. And so the idea of potentially losing those is so painful and so scary that it could be preventing you from moving toward a life that brings you value and meaning. And quite honestly, I think it would be really important to think about how that's limiting to you. And to the whole community of BCBAs. Like, if we're pigeonholing ourselves in a science and we're not reaching out to new places and new areas in order to do research or to do work, or to test out how our science works with new populations, new environments, new applications, because we're afraid of our governing body, then we're not practicing real science anymore. That's my judgment. That we're not continuing to grow. We're not continuing to think and apply. We're staying stuck in something, and that's not innovation, right? Which is a part of science, right? So if we're afraid of people, and then we don't take action, is that really in our value set as people who are analysts or scientists, right? That's a really important question that I think is worthy of thought and worthy of movement, especially as we see more and more people becoming BCBAs but only being trained in autism intervention. So when we're afraid of BCBAs reporting us, right? Let's think about, does that have to be true, right? It could be very true. I was very afraid of that for a long time. And I actually had to do an exercise for myself about coming to terms with the fact that living a life that was valuable and meaningful to me was more important than my letters, and that I would be a behaviorist even if somehow I lost my letters, and that if I was following my values, which I'm a good person who wants to do good things, and I truly was going to lose my letters for that, then this probably wasn't a group of people that I really needed to be a part of. And so I had to really come to the word, right? Like they say, like a come to Jesus moment about whether or not that was like the person I wanted to be and the group that I wanted to be in. And so if that is something that's holding you back from your life living the way that you want, and in this application we're thinking about it as far as entrepreneurship, creating a business, being seen creating a business, like on social media, a lot of the time that's what the fear is that people are going to see you. You want people to see you because that's the only way you're going to, work as someone, right? Sell a product or services. But then you also have to be seen doing that. And the fear of judgment there is really painful sometimes. It's so painful that it gets a whole chapter in my book and 2 chapters in my next book that's coming out. And I feel like we've talked about it. I think it was within the imposter syndrome. Like, the fear of being perceived is so uncomfortable. But it's also the only way that we're going to be able to move towards a life that we value. So I would really encourage you to think about how being seen and how imposter syndrome or perfectionism plays into your sticky points in entrepreneurship, in social media, in coaching, in moving towards a career that you want. Unfortunately, we're in a place where there aren't a whole lot of examples. We're not taught exactly how to work as a BCBA outside of autism intervention. So it means we're going to have to trailblaze. It's not always comfortable to be that, and you're probably going to make mistakes doing that. But it's also just part of the process, right? And so there's acceptance for that. There's permission for mistakes. And then there's like the detailed stuff, like how to make a website, okay? How to create content, right? How to like how to make a reel, how to actually do that, how to make an offer, how to organize your materials so that people can see them, how to even make materials. And there's a lot of ways to do that. And a lot of the times people think, well, there's, at the company that I work for, there's a whole person who does that. Truly, there are ways to be able to start doing some of this stuff without having a whole person doing that. I personally use Wix for my website, Wix, and you can just, it's free to get started. If you're okay with using their domain site, it's going to be free for a long time before you really need something. And there's YouTube tutorials on how to build a thing. And there's lots of Facebook groups of people who would be willing to help you. I joined a Facebook group called Free Mamas because when I first started thinking about becoming a coach, it was because I wanted to stay at home with my kids. And be able to contribute towards the finances of our family because I valued work. And I was also in a lot of scarcity around money at that time. And all of those people want to help you. So if you say, what do I use to make a website? They'll tell you. How do I figure out how to embed a link? Oh, they'll tell you. What should I use for scheduling? Because for me, I ended up doing scheduling with people outside of my time zone frequently, all the time. And I don't like scheduling. So how can I make this easier for myself? Oh, there's an app for that. And I can just give people a link. Amazing. How do I make a landing page? How do I automate emails? There's a lot of information out there for free that you can start accessing now if you start looking. But if you're in the mindset that I can't do that, that's going to be too hard, then that will be true. But if you're in the mindset of, well, this could work out, I'm curious, I'm going to check it out to see, then that will be true. If you're like, it will work out for me, then that will be true too. Even through failure, you will still have the belief that I will make it work and it will be okay because it's what is on my heart to do. And so that brings me to how I created my platform and my offers. Was not through market research. It was not through polling. I mean, I do polls to see what people are interested in, but it's usually because I've already decided I want to do that. And I'm kind of letting people know that it's something that I'm going to do. So here you go, right? It was because that's what I wanted to teach. That's what I wanted to do. That's my clarity and my vision. And through the work of ACT, which is what we've been doing this whole this whole period, we've been getting clear on what is standing in our way from the life we want to live. And so if coaching, owning your own agency or your own business, using social media at all for any reason, even if it's not monetized, is on your heart to do, then let's keep looking at some of these things that I've been talking about, to be able to break away from the mindset barriers that are preventing you from being able to take action. Because like I said, once we start looking, and because we believe that it's something that can happen, then we'll find it. The internet is a very vast place. Like, I it's so crazy. Like, I'm setting up right now, like, calls with people in London, calls with people in other parts of Europe, interactions with people in Japan or people in Africa, lots of people in Canada, and lots of people in the United States. And I didn't anticipate that, right? I didn't anticipate that at all. My book is selling in places around the world, and I didn't anticipate that. It was just on my heart to make those things. And I had to believe that it would work out, even though I didn't necessarily have proof of it. And that is ACT, right? It's not craziness. It's vision. It's inner vision. And it is absolutely something that you can do, but it's probably really scary. And that's okay. Scary is okay. We can have scary in our life. In fact, scary probably makes things more fun in the long run. So I'm curious so far what people are feeling about this. I'm curious what things are sticky for you, what things you want to create, and what things you're afraid to want to create. Because those are the things that are probably on your heart to make, and that we have the opportunity to start working with them. So that's going to be my homework for today, is to take a look at all of those things that I've presented so far, right? We talked about coaching as an unregulated title. We talked about using mindfulness and communication to being able to, I was going to use the word amplify, accentuate, add to, build up your own experience within coaching, right? Like, let's get you to where you want to be, and let's go ahead and get you started. Like, what is it that you want to do? Who do you want to work with in your ideal life? Who are you afraid of wanting to work with, right? For me, initially it was neurotypical people, or people with anxiety and depression, but not necessarily who had another diagnoses, because I had depression and anxiety, and it greatly impacted me, and I feel like I needed to be worked with in a different way. So who is it that you want to work with, right? And then what's getting in your way? Are you worried about marketing? Are you worried about making websites? Are you worried about money, receiving money, having enough money? If that's true, let's start digging into that more. If it's about being seen, if it's about the BACB or the other BCBAs and navigating your ethics code, let's dig into that more. And for any of those things that might be true, the concepts that we've already gone through in imposter syndrome, perfectionism, life balance, all the things that we've already talked about, visit those, but also the core things, right? The core things that I talk about every single time. Notice the sticky thoughts. Ask yourself, does it have to be true? Is that an absolute truth, or is that a perspective truth? Is it helpful towards my goals? Can I think about this differently? And then the intention practice of noticing when you're doing the thing that you want to be doing, or feeling the feelings you want to be doing. One of my favorite practices for that is to borrow it from another place in your life. Maybe you're already pretty comfortable in a relationship that you have, or maybe in how you organize your life, right? Like whatever it is true, there's probably an example that's existing for you of having the feelings that you want to be feeling, experiencing the type of things that you want to be experiencing. Like if you're at work and you mentor someone for their BCBA hours and you like that, you're probably coaching them. You're probably doing a good job already. There's probably a reason why that's working out for you, because you like it and it's working out for you, right? So you're probably already accessing some of that stuff and then playing with the mindset of it. The other one for intention setting that I like to do is acting as if it were true. And this is one that I utilized a ton when I was becoming an entrepreneur. It would be like, what does successful business Mallory do in this situation? Not what does Mallory, who's right now freaking out, do, but like Mallory 6 months to a year from now, well, how would she handle this situation when it comes to, you know, maybe someone backing out of an interaction, someone not signing, my posts not doing well as far as the analytics, right? All of those had different fears behind them. And so it's like, what am I afraid of right now? Right? With someone backing out or someone not signing, it was a fear of money. So what would Mallory do if she was really safe in money? Well, she'd probably let that person just go. Like, it doesn't matter if they don't sign, because I'm going to find another person who's going to sign. And that's no big deal to me. And then that truth becomes my truth. Like, it actually happened that way. I was led to make a group, and that ended up allowing me to work with lots of people, which was part of my vision anyway, would be to have a larger impact, right? That was a connection to my values. So it didn't really matter if one person didn't sign or another person started but didn't want to finish, right? That's okay, because that future Mallory would be okay with it. And then I eventually became that future Mallory, right? Okay, so I hope that you guys enjoyed this. This is like a topic I'm really excited to talk more about. I've posted a ton of prompts. I'm going to post some more prompts this week because I like it. And then next week is week 8, where we're going to be talking about tying it all together. How is this ABA? And spoiler alert, ACT is working with verbal behavior. It's just we can't always see all the verbal behavior. So let's tie it together next week. All right, comment below. Answer some of those wonderful journaling prompt questions for me. Let's talk about it. Let's make this real for you. Let's make this tangible for you. Let's talk about how we can overcome some of those barriers so that way you can move towards the life that you want to live. Let's let you be seen living your awesome life. That's one thing I've also seen people do, is that when something really good happens to them in their life, they make accommodations for it. They're like, oh, well, I worked really hard for this for like 5 years and it's really not easy and I have a really tough time doing it and it's not what you would think. And when we do that, we're telling ourselves that about our thing that we're excited about and that we want. So just notice that that is a process. The Big Leap is a really nice book for that as well, which we've already talked about in some of these trainings, that thermostat stuff. So maybe access your notes for that. Yeah. Okay, friends, I hope you're having a really lovely day, and I really look forward to chatting with you about this topic. All right, talk soon.